Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is Oliver, who will be telling you notorious true crime cases and unsolved mysteries of Asia. If you're a huge fan of true crime, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Parts of these stories may contain opinions and speculations and contain graphic content, so listener discretion is advised. Let's start with today's story, the Mungyeong Crucifixion Case. This is possibly the most bizarre case in Korean history, and the circumstances of it shocked the nation. On May 1st, 2011, the body of a 57-year-old taxi driver, known only to the public as Mr. Kim, was found on Tundeksan Mountain in South Korea. The reason this specific case drew so much attention is due to the unusual state in which Kim's body was found. Kim was just wearing white underwear with a crown of thorns on his head and was hanging on a cross with nails in both his hands and feet. In addition to the strange positioning of his body, there was also a stab wound on the right side of his abdomen. It looked like a recreation of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. According to the police, the tip of the nail was sharpened, which would have enabled Kim to hammer the nail into his own feet. Kim was the father of 2 children, but tragedy struck when his son fell ill and had to undergo a liver transplant. He died shortly after the procedure at the age of 22. The shock and guilt stemming from the death of his son led Kim to leave his wife and live alone in a rented room. He worked as a taxi driver to make ends meet, but just before he died, he sold his taxi and moved out of his room. Later in March, he drove his newly purchased car to the Bungal area and set up a tent near the abandoned quarry where he was found. On April 13th, he bought wood directly from a sawmill. The next day, he bought groceries in Mungyeong, canceled his savings installments, and transferred the 9 million won, approximately $9,000 in his account to his brother. Then he canceled his cell phone. There was further curious evidence on his Galaxy tablet. Police found records of Kim visiting blogs related to the death of Jesus. It's likely that factors such as the death of his son and his separation from his wife led to Kim becoming more deeply absorbed in religion. The autopsy results gave some insight into what happened in the moments leading up to Kim's death. It's presumed that Kim used an electric drill to drill holes into both of his hands before placing them onto nails that had been hammered into the cross in advance. There were also notes and diagrams near the scene detailing the dimensions of the cross and instructions on how to hang it. So this could be considered proof that he crucified himself, given the statements that he had become immersed in religion and the fact that he died around Easter. It's believed that there were significant religious reasons for his death. Following an investigation, the National Forensic Service came to the conclusion that Kim died by suicide. This is what the police explained. How he had prepared the site, he made the cross, hammered the large nails into it, and erected it on the mountain. He also hung loops made of compression bandages over each side of the cross. Standing on either side of this crucifix were 2 smaller wooden crosses, one with a mirror attached to it. It's believed that these crucifixes were made to represent the 2 thieves who were crucified next to Jesus. The mirror was placed facing the body, showing the hanging figure. Kim put the crown of thorns over his head, and while squatting with his back against the cross, he drove a nail into his foot between his big toe and second toe, completely affixing him to the cross. Then he got up and used the straps that he prepared to tie his waist and neck to the structure. What was the mirror for, you ask? Using the mirror, Kim could check for the correct location on his abdomen before stabbing himself with a knife he prepared. Then he was able to drill holes into both his hands and place them over the nails. The National Forensic Service believed that he died when he began to lose consciousness and tilted forward, causing the loop tied around his neck to strangle him. But the suggestion that Kim achieved all of this alone raises a lot of questions, some of which raised the possibility that this was actually a murder. One of the reasons is that Kim had holes drilled onto his hands, but what was found next to Kim's body was just a small hand drill. Discovered further away from the body was a strong electric drill, which is more likely to be powerful enough to drill through a human hand. So it raises suspicions as to whether he really drilled holes into his hands at the scene. If you drilled into your own hand, you damaged the surrounding tissues, which could make you incapable of using the fingers on that hand. In this state, it raises serious questions about whether you'd be able to pick up the drill and drill a hole into your other hand. There would also surely be a lot of blood with the bleeding in his abdomen and the bleeding from his hands. He could have lost consciousness and collapsed. So how did he manage to do all these things in this state? As people started to express the opinion that this would have been difficult to achieve alone, some suggested that there could have been someone who helped him die, or perhaps that he was murdered. However, the police concluded that it was a case of suicide because Kim got his affairs in order just before his death and due to the discovery of an action plan. They concluded that the whole process from hammering a nail into his foot and drilling holes into his hands would have been possible without any help, but still plenty of questions remain. How could a person endure that amount of pain and still proceed with their plan to the end? The police stated that the nail was inserted into the flesh of his foot between the bones, which would have been less painful. It's also presumed that the religious beliefs that led him to commit suicide in this way would have helped him to endure the pain. But even then, there are still questions. This place was completely abandoned, and it was located in Mungyeong when Kim was living miles away in Changwon. So, how did he end up coming to this place where he didn't know anyone to commit suicide? Given that he was crucified in the image of Jesus, it's presumed that he came to this site to recreate Jesus' death. However, if he wanted to achieve a perfect recreation of Jesus' death, as it's described in the Bible, there should have been a lot of people watching him. Jesus was stabbed by a Roman soldier in the crowd. So, for the perfect reenactment, wouldn't he have needed a crowd of people to watch his death? But there is a witness who's closely related to this story. The first witness in this case is Mr. Ju was the operator of an online religious community that Kim joined. Ju's a former pastor, and his story he had is located not too far from the place where the incident occurred. But she was not the only witness who discovered Kim's body. She was accompanied by 3 beekeepers. They went into the mountains looking for a place to install a beehive. After they found a place, one of them suggested they had backed down. The Jew here insisted on going further up, saying that the view is better from further up the mountain. So, the 3 of them eventually climbed up the mountain where they discovered Kim's body. Everyone was shaking with fear at this shocking sight, but strangely, Ju started taking pictures of the scene with his camera. He then posted pictures of the dead body and the action plan he found at the site in the online community he was running. Ju left a comment saying he was surprised that such a suicide was even possible. It's surprising that someone who discovered a dead body would decide to take photographs and upload them to an online community. In an interview, Ju said that he met him before. 2 years prior to his suicide, Kim contacted Ju and the two met. Ju said that Kim was a little unusual. Ju said that Kim pondered what it would be like to go beyond the suffering of Christ. He said he couldn't imagine how painful it would be to erect a cross, kneel down, and hammer nails into your own body. However, as much as this might imply a suicide, it might also imply something else, maybe a murder committed by someone who heard the story. The more you dig into the incident, the more you see Ju, the witness, and the operator of the internet community. Did this person who already knew Kim really have nothing to do with his death? But in the end, the Mungyeong Cross incident closes with a conclusion of suicide. Only the deceased, Kim, knows the truth. Thanks for watching.